Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Ball Watching. We're on F3 this year, Justin. You can't bench this show, unlike many other shows, but that's because we put a lot of effort, a lot of quality into this product here, Justin, and we got a lot to get through in today's episode. And only a week between episodes, but I'm telling you, so much happens. And I think you'll all enjoy some of the topics that we foray into today. But before we get too heavy into the agenda, Justin, how we doing? It's Thursday. Let's just go ahead and kick it off with the what are you watching segment. What are you up to, Justin? What's going on?
It's been a long week, Jake. I think this is the first time I'm going to go glasses on the pod. I've had contacts for 16 years, and I just got glasses 2 weeks ago. Kind of insane. But what am I watching with these bad boys? I'm still watching Severance. And the only reason I had something else in my mind, but then you said this is not a show you can binge. Severance, not a show you can binge. You got to wait once a week. It actually dropped again tonight. So I don't think I'm still at the office, obviously. You can see the background. I don't think I'll be watching it tonight. That's usually like my Friday night, tuck me into sleep kind of thing. But Severance has been incredible. Episode 3 of season 2 just dropped last week. Best episode so far. What have you been up to? Sorry, I hit you right when you're getting a drink.
No, I'm laughing because you're leading into the what are you watching, and like with your glasses coming, like, do you even know what you've been watching? Like squinting your eyes, wiping the fuck up. This is a YouTube moment for anyone that wants to watch that back. But what am I watching, Justin? I'm actually, and we got a comment in here already off the bat, which is great. Kevin got the Blues game on in the background. That's my what am I watching? I've been watching a buttload of Blues content, and my heart hurts. It's been a rough downturn in the last couple of weeks, and I love this team. And I love them even more when City's not here because that's where I dump a lot of my attention and time to. And man, it's been a tough go over the last couple games, but I'm hoping the best for the guys. We got some really young, exciting players, and I think a good coach that'll hopefully take us to some success in the future. Maybe not this season, but it also kind of spin zones me, Justin. I think, with the Cardinals trending the direction they are, especially looking at last year, same thing with the Blues this year, pretty much icing their way out of the playoffs picture at this point. I think City has a good opportunity to be the best St. Louis team this year by far and away.
Oh, absolutely. I think when you talk about this, we're still talking about Arenado maybe going to the Red Sox. The Blues are still, it seems like we're tanking at this point. But Jake, are we ever going to talk about puck watching, STL?
Oh, yes, we will. Yes, we will. And we'll talk a lot more about it here soon. But I mentioned the Blues as well because some of you might have seen, whether that's on our Instagram or Twitter or what have you, there is an official spinoff of Ball Watching by a couple guys that share the same last name as me. Unfortunately, but these guys are puck watching, and they are going to be part of our network, and they will bring you the Blues content that you crave, the hot takes. I'm telling you, if you guys just want to be entertained, the way that these two riff off of each other is absolutely classic. So recommend you check out puck watching. There'll be a lot more to come on that from us here in the future. But for all of our Blues fans / City fans, those that bleed blue and City red, this is going to be a good show for you. So make sure you check it out. They record, I believe, on Sundays right now. Just one episode out. So go check out puck watching wherever you get your pods, also on YouTube. But Justin, one more thing before we get into the rest of the show on what am I watching? I'm watching the tick, 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 tick upward of my freaking water bill. In case people don't look at that, like I'm on auto pay. It's responsible, it's easy to remember. But I never really look at it. And I pried it open the other day. I'm like, what's going on here? I mean, this thing's spiking up. And I'm like, I have no idea what it could be. I mean, maybe it's the winter, no idea. So I do some research and I'm like, wait, what am I doing? I have the best people in the business for things like that, and that's Hoffman Brothers. So I looked at my home protection plan. I gave him a call, and I had a technician out here, and I asked, what could be the possible reasons? And fortunately, there was nothing big wrong with what I was dealing with, but some reasons they laid out for me, and you can go find these on social media. They do a great job of blasting this kind of stuff out, is leaky faucets or pipes, running toilets, increased water usage, hidden underground leaks, you name it, they lay it out for you. Don't let those high bills hit your wallet in a bad way. Make sure you contact people like Hoffman Brothers to get in your corner and make sure you are totally equipped on the home front. You can reach out at 314-664-3011 or visit them online at hoffmanbros.com.
Those are the guys too, Jake, when you talk about it, when you said tick, 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 I thought you were going to say TikTok with the Hoffman Brothers. They've been putting out some great content right now with their tips. And it's honestly stuff like you said. It's literally house owning for dummies. I don't even own a house, but like we talked about the air filters last episode. You talked about the water bill this time. These are things that are just everyday knowledge you should have And it's okay if you don't have it, because these guys are the most welcoming family that you can have in St. Louis. So give them a call, 314-664-3011, or go to hoffmanbros.com, like Jake said.
All right, let's kick in, Justin. We got one more comment actually coming in from Angus McWhorter on YouTube saying he's watching CONCACAF Champions League on Hulu. Chibao versus Guadalajara. That is going on. For anyone that wants to get their footy fix, CONCACAF Champions League is officially begun. We are not featuring this year, but there will be some good matches to catch there. So thanks for the comment there, Angus. What are we watching? We actually got to watch or stream a preseason match, the first of our preseason this year, yesterday, with City playing their first game in the Coachella or Goalchella Invitational against RSL. And let me just start by saying one thing. There's going to be a bunch of these matches. There's 3 total in Coachella and then a closed door friendly as well. So we got a couple more preseason matches to watch. And the next 2 will be streamed guaranteed. So we will get eyes. And as great as it is to get eyes, I want to remind everyone, and even remind myself, it's preseason. And things aren't going to be the prettiest thing. And it's about learning in this time. So if I am going to look past that for just a couple seconds and just indulge, a couple of notes from yesterday. The starting 11 was a 3-5-2, any flavor of that, a 5-3-2, we could even flex in some midfielders and add another one to the front line. But anyway, there was a back 3. And that back 3 was Yarrow, Winsel, and Nilsson yesterday. So, none of some of the big dogs did not even feature at all yesterday. So, you think about a guy like Hartel or Teuscher yesterday, no minutes for those guys. So not even any minutes for Kessler either. But we saw back 3 for the first time with our own eyes yesterday. And I wasn't throwing up. So it actually was okay. And we saw a midfield featuring Kyle Hebert starting at right wing back, not on my bingo card. I'm not sure if it's something that I want to see a lot, given what I saw yesterday, but interesting nonetheless. And then we saw Betcher Klaus start up top. And we got the debut of Conrad Vollum. So those are a couple things to call out from the starting 11, Justin, but I'm not sure if you had time to catch the game. It was really interesting. We looked like a team that looked familiar in some ways, but really different in others.
It was one. So Jake, I didn't get to catch it live. I caught the highlights as well. I do think that, again, I'm going to preface this. We've talked about it. It's preseason, but it is good that we finally have soccer back. We're able to see it. And I would agree with you, Jake. I think it's one where you can see glimpses of a team we used to know. And yes, it is preseason in the fact that, these guys are still trying to figure each other out. Olaf is still trying to figure this out. So I'm not expecting us to really have the glue and the continuity that we're expecting to have mid-season form. However, and I don't know if we'll necessarily see that in any of these next coming games with Coachella either. However, I'm hoping that the guys are feeling better about it in training than they're showing on the field right now, because it does seem a little disjointed.
Yeah, and I think primarily disjointment for me, and again, we're not overreacting at all here. I'm just calling it what it is for right now. I think a lot of that is going to be a victim of preseason or an output of preseason. A lot of kick and run, relying on Klaus and Betcher just to hold the ball for us to get numbers forward. And you're seeing some new faces or familiar faces in new positions. And Hebert, like that, is a good example for me. We even saw a Joyner get some time at wing back yesterday as well. And that to me is more of a, we see him more as a striker, as a forward. That happens a lot in soccer, at least that I watch, European-wise. A lot of young guys that want to get some minutes. Wing backs are hard to come by because you have to be the fittest person on the field, potentially. And getting minutes there is great for your skill set, both in learning how to defend properly, but also how to stretch the field, get up into the attack, and look for new avenues. So I liked seeing Joyner get some minutes yesterday. Was it his best? I'm not sure. But the only other thing I'll say is, it was really fun to see Vollum, and he absolutely dog walked a defender on the way to scoring, the first goal for us. It was technically an own goal, but he wreaked some havoc and caused the goalie to have a little bit of a connection fit. And the last thing I'll say, Justin, is that we got some good debut minutes for preseason with Celio and Ostrak and Alm, which I throw that in there, and we'll talk about Alm in a couple of minutes here. But it was good to see Celio and Ostrak get, back onto the pitch with their teammates, get some minutes, some competitive minutes, some full contact under their belts. That's good timing because we still have another 3 or 4 matches prior to season kicking off.
Again, this is one of those things where you want to be careful with those guys, obviously dealing with major injuries in the past season and even prior to that. But it is good to see them finally get the legs underneath them, because you can practice all you want. I think every athlete knows this. Is the practice is you try to practice like you're going to play, but it's not truly until you're on the field in a true match. And that's when their heart rate ticks up. You get the energy, the adrenaline. It's like, all right, I got to slow it down, make sure I can pace myself. And getting these guys back into that feel of against guys that you're not practicing against every day is truly important during this time of the season.
Agreed. A final kind of specific city shout out before we get into some of the general commentary on the team recently is want to give a huge shout out and a huge kudos to City 2 midfielder Lorenzo Cornelius, aka Zoe for short. He was called up to the U17 youth men's national team for their upcoming qualifiers tournament in Alajuela, Costa Rica from February 3rd to 16th. So he's with the boys in camp right now. They're playing the Titans of CONCACAF with U.S. Virgin Islands, St. Kitts and Nevis, and Cuba. And I say that negatively, a little bit sarcastically, but the ramifications are huge because if they win this group, they are qualified for the U17 World Cup in Qatar in 2025. And what a cool opportunity for Zoe to go play some meaningful minutes in a high, high impact, high stakes competition and hopefully cement a spot on that team. He will be eligible for selection. And what an experience to send a City Academy graduate to Qatar to take part in the U17 World Cup. You've seen that be the starting point for a lot of prolific players that are current right now on the roster. So I want to extend that huge, congratulations to him. That's no small feat. And he joins a growing list of Academy City players to do so. But Justin, react to me with the importance of, having City and a national team kind of have this sort of partnership where it's frequent or it's not a surprise to see a City Academy or a City first team or a City 2 guy pop up on the national team radar.
I mean, I think it speaks volumes, one, to the culture and the teams that we are putting together here, not only in the first team where you're seeing Indy get called up, but also just throughout the organization. You see TK, obviously our goalie coach, massive things with Roman Berkey, obviously then Patrick Schulte as well. Now we're seeing a couple of the younger guys get called up. That's speaking volumes to our academy, our City 2. It's from top to bottom. And this is something that it will take time to be able to see this growth. We will start to see these homegrown guys be able to grow up through the ranks and become first team guys. Yes, we've gotten a couple glimpses of it in the past 2 seasons. This is something, as you'll come to learn, especially in the MLS, with the academies being around for years now, a lot of these guys are homegrown and then come and are consistent starters for their teams. And then by that as well, that's when you get to start shopping them and they start looking to go overseas as well. You talk about the Josh Sargents, the young guys like that are starting in America and then working their way over there. I mean, even Christian Pulisic started in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and then working his way over. I'm not trying to compare any of the guys that we have to that right now, but it just shows the optimism and the quality that we are having, especially in St. Louis.
And 2 things, and both actually relate to our friends at the Soccer Dad Pod. These guys were waxing poetic about Zoe months ago now, so they believe in him for sure. The second thing I wanted to say, and I'm sort of now blanking on it, Justin, but I just think it's really important that we are in the conversation, that you see City in the national team. Oh, I know what I was going to think of with them is we're, I think, yet to, and for good reason, still yet to see, a one of our own situation, right? Where, a full-blown academy guy that, was in the academy for, a host of a couple of years and worked his way up into City 2, or maybe skip City 2, go to the first team, or City 2 to the first team, what have you. Someone that makes that full kind of jump and shows you the life cycle in real life and in full practice and becomes a crucial player for City. I think we have some potentials with a Caden Glover, even a Joyner you could throw the hat in for. But I think Zoe at the, the ripe young age of 16, making this journey through the academy up to the national team and maybe into City's first team at some point would be a great demonstration. So I'm looking forward to that, whenever that time finally does come for us. Couple segments here, Justin, I wanted to pick apart. There was a press conference recently with Olaf and Lutz where journalists got to ask some questions and kind of get a feel for how preseason is and just some of the hot topics. And I picked a couple of them just to kind of pick apart with you, Justin. And the first one I had came from, so this is Olaf, we'll start with a couple of these. The idea of balancing positional flexibility and continuity. And I picked this quote out. He said, I think it's important they can play at least a couple of positions. And we are trying that in training and in games. I think it's both. We don't have that much time and not that many games, so it's really a balance. We want to try players in a few different positions, but it's also important to start building relationships in the position we mainly think they're going to play in. I mentioned this, Justin, already in the preseason kind of talk about this first game. As a former player, walk me through I think we're seeing a big evolution in soccer right now of the value of utility players, guys that can excel in multiple positions. But, you do have to drill deep into one as well and become a guy. Talk me through that perspective as a former player or someone kind of seeing that now and how the game's molding and growing.
So I think there's two aspects of it to it, Jake. I think on the first one, and thank you for putting me on the spot for this because I was a center back and played very one directional. But honestly, for the utility guys, it's a confidence thing because once you're a utility guy, coach has confidence in you. And hey, if someone goes down, you're that first guy that he is looking at, unless someone's automatically hot. Ideally, and what I'm going to talk about right here is Indy Vassilev. We've seen him play in multiple different positions for this team, left side, right side, middle, and can kind of go all over. He's that plug and play guy. He's that guy that, hey, we're down a goal. It's the 60th minute. We didn't start him. Why didn't we start him in these kind of days? Whatever. But now we have 35 minutes when you talk in stoppage time that he can go in and just automatically be a plug and play guy. So then when you have that confidence because your coach's guy and you're going in,
Might have lost you for a little bit there, Justin, but I think I know the direction you're heading in. And that direction would be it's important to be able to have these flex or these utility guys ready and rearing to go for the team to plug in whenever that moment comes. If that's injury crisis, if that's making an impact off the bench. And I like it. I think it's going to present an opportunity for guys like potentially, like I just mentioned, Joyner, to be able to hop in, get some minutes in meaningful games. And it may not be your preferred position, but it's a place you can start, right? It's a place you can grab minutes. And we've had our injury crises in the past already. Last season was a great example of it. You've got to be able to navigate, those stresses on your team. So, Justin, I filled in the rest of your answer there. I think you left with a good point for me to fill in the cracks. But the next topic we had, Justin, was controlling within the attack. So a quote he had here was, what I was talking about was control. It was more, I think our positions, if we lose the ball, like rest defense and being more in control that way so that we can be more dangerous in attack and pin opponents down and create more. So definitely want to be an unpredictable team and surprising team. We like to direct attacks and get in behind the opponents, and that's something we're working on. We talked about rest defense, I think, at least briefly, Justin, last year, because it felt like that was a piece that was missing at times. Because when that ball gets turned over, when we're on offense and we have to transition out of defense, it felt like it came right back down our throats, and we were not able to adjust in time. Everyone just sprinting their back towards the goal, and it felt hectic. And part of that to me felt like an opportunity for us to get better on where we are when we're not defending actively, when we're actually in active offense or attack, but our defenders are not stationary, but they're not as engaged in the play at that moment. Is there a way, and you can speak to this, Justin, is, positioning is important. You're never standing static. You're always moving around. Either you're tracking someone or you're getting and occupying new space. I like this idea. When you read that quote and you hear him talk about that, is that an opportunity to you that we could, improve upon this season?
Absolutely. I think this is one that, and we didn't see a whole lot of it, to be completely honest, in the past. And it's something that I like that Olaf is kind of just coming in and implementing. It's one that it's not an easy kind of thing to kind of switch into as a team. And I do think that that's where we're probably kind of tweaking with this right now during the preseason. But honestly, at this point, Jake, especially with how the season was last year, I'm open to all of the ideas that are coming in. And I really appreciate that he's being a little bit more open with us, because it's not very common where you're being able to see the inside of almost the mind of the coach that's coming in. And I think that's refreshing for us.
I would agree. It sounded like he's worked these guys pretty hard in Florida, and they learned a lesson in that first game because they came out, it sounded like pretty flat from what he had to say. So he said the focus going into Coachella was to really lighten more the physical load to help increase our match sharpness and focus on the details and more of the intricacies and how we play. So I think you're going to see an evolution even throughout Coachella. The last thing I pulled from his piece of the press conference, Justin, was injuries, just to get a little bit of a detail on this. So Celio and Ostrak were getting integrated into team training this week, time of recording, and they obviously got their first minutes. So great progress made by them. We still have not seen Durkin, so he's just behind them, it sounds like, getting some more fitness in. Alm also had a setback groin injury, which is recurring. We've mentioned this at the last season already. The aim was to get him back involved this week, and he did get some minutes. So we're hopefully seeing that, get not aggravated anymore, and hopefully on the other side of it. The only other big thing to keep an eye on is just JGR at this point, because he had that minor surgery. It's weird how shrouded in mystery this is. If anyone knows, let us know. But he also got sick in Florida camp. So he's had little to no, sounds like, fitness or real training underneath his belt. But after Olaf, Justin, they jumped into Lutz. And you and I last week on the pod were reacting this basically in real time on re-signing Roman Berkey. I want to get your take on this, Justin. They asked, is there a big urgency in re-signing Roman? And Lutz's quote was no urgency at all. I mean, I can tell you that Roman Berkey will start the season with us, will finish the season with us, so it doesn't matter. If the Moon or Barcelona is interested in him, he will not leave St. Louis City this year, and he will stay with us. Justin, reaction, just raw to that quote. Does that make you feel comfortable? What does that make you feel?
Instant reaction. Going to Despicable Me, the moon. But it doesn't matter, dude. I think this is one where it's like, hey, let's get any of these questions out of the way. That's what I think Lutz is doing. I think obviously that Lutz is not being shallow and saying that, hey, this is not something we're worried about. Obviously, they're worried about trying to re-sign him next year. We're in preseason for this year. We're focused on this year. Behind the scenes, they're working on contracts. I can promise you that. But right now, he's just squashing anything that's coming out of this. And so if anybody essentially throughout the season is like, oh, this team's reaching out, we kiboshed that even before the season starts. So that's exactly what I would expect out of Lutz.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily have a problem with it, but I don't think it's no urgency at all. Like, yeah, I do think, behind that, he is working on this probably actively at this point, but I would hope so, because when you're entering the last year of your deal, which he is, I can't find and confirm right now whether or not he has an option year for 2026, but he's for sure ours through 2025. And I want it to be longer. He shows no signs of slowing down from what I can gather. And you want to keep him happy. You want to not have the team get distracted in these types of contract disputes and these things to just persist on and on and on, especially in the middle of the season. So I want to give him that security that we believe in him. We're entering a good window right now. I want him to be a part of it. So I really hope that Lutz is continuing to push. And I do hope that he is. And I do believe that he is in the background. But I do want to have a little bit of urgency. So that's my balance in that. But another one, Justin, a quote here from Lutz on Olaf's coaching. And I had mentioned this exact word before, so I wanted to hear your thoughts. But he said, yeah, we're definitely very organized. This is a very important puzzle piece for me, that we're getting the presence and aura on the field where we're working on the detail. We're working a good structure, a good organization. And as Olaf mentioned, we played 90 minutes. We hardly gave a chance away. We considered one goal, which is more like a slapstick than a goal. A couple things to pick apart here. Sounds like defense, big priority to shore up. And I love that. Totally agree with it. And I think Olaf, with this playing resume and his limited coaching resume, I hope he can help be a big piece of that. But speaking of pieces, I've said puzzle pieces. I don't know if I've said it here or on a different podcast that I was doing a guest spot on, but I think Olaf is more of a part or a cog in our system. I don't think he is like the guy that you put in the pedestal. This is our coach. He will take us to the promised land. He is the one. I think he is a very important piece of the puzzle, and Lutz is also a piece of the puzzle, and so are some of our key players, and all of our players have some piece of the puzzle. But I don't think we are a coach first type of team, and I think he really highlighted that for me in that quote.
No, I think it's important to note that, because like you said, the biggest thing for us, especially trying to keep our culture, is being a piece of a machine. And I would say that Olaf is the first one that's going to be able to say that. No one wants to be the head name guy coming in. You don't want the Bruce Arena trying to make waves, trying to be cool or something shifty. Let's do what works for us. Let's figure out our system, and then let's perfect that system. And that's what I think that he's doing. He's getting the lay of the land, and it's not like he just came in completely blindsided. Lutz had a plan in place, and this is a system that he knew that Olaf could implement and thrive in. And it's just going to take a little bit to get it up and rolling. The wheels are starting to turn. Wait till we are a well-oiled machine throughout the season. You're really going to see it uptick.
Agreed. Symbiotic relationship, buzzword for the day. Final thing on City, Justin, before we transition to the back half of the show, we'll talk about some more open topics that I think impact soccer more broadly in this great country, is the big game. The big game coming up on Sunday for all of you. You all know exactly what I'm talking about. And this big game is going to feature a big club from right here in St. Louis. So if you're tuning into the big game on Sunday, you're going to see a specific ad that will feature St. Louis City very, very prominently. They're stoked about it. I'm stoked about it. A quote I ripped here from Diego Gigliani, the president GM of St. Louis City, was, "We are beyond excited to be part of this innovative initiative in a partnership with MLS. The game is consistently the most watched TV event in the U.S., and having the opportunity to bring further awareness of our club and our incredible fans to the broader St. Louis audience is an opportunity we could not pass up." So I think this will be a regional ad. It says it's going to be regional ads. So it's not like everyone's seeing this. You're not seeing this next to Doritos and the Bud Light commercial with Post Malone and Shane Gillis, which would be really cool if it was. But this does tell me that, one, MLS likes what City is doing, and two, City is getting out to more eyeballs and spreading more awareness and maybe getting some more butts in seats, some new butts in seats at Energizer Park, and just driving awareness around this great sport that we want to see hit rocket fuel levels of attention come 2026. So I like when everyone's rowing in the same direction, and this kind of feels like that.
Absolutely. I mean, I would say even though it's a regional, this is a big one. And I think that City's extremely excited, as Diego said, but it's something that that they've been working towards. I think working towards the marketing. This is something that Matt Seaback and team do an incredible job on. We talk about the in-game aspect of it. Now they're displaying that on your television, showing how much fun it is to get to a City game. And now that we have games that are a little bit more accessible and kind of more spaced out, it's not every other Wednesday. You're trying to get the kids back to bed after the game. It's a mess. Now's the time to go at it. And I think they're really going to try to drive this home.
Agreed. And while we're on the topic of the big game, for anyone that's living under a rock / missed our last episode or doesn't follow us on social media, which you should, by the way, make sure you follow at BallWatchingSTL on X and Instagram. Same thing on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to us so you can get notifications when we're going live and doing shows like this. You'll be the first to know. So make sure you show us some love if you like what you're hearing. Underdog is celebrating the big game by giving everyone, new customers, existing customers alike, a no sweat entry, which means either you cash in and you can get a nice little payout on whatever your entry is, or if you lose, you get your entry fee back via bonus credit. So what a way to start the big game week and the lead up to all these fun events and fixtures that surround it. And we announced our partnership last week, but just as a reminder, if you haven't already, we have blasted out the link to a bunch of you all, and it's on social media if you want to find it. But if you don't, download the app Underdog or go online and look for it and sign up using our code BALLWATCHING, all one word, and put at least $10 in as a deposit and place an entry. You can go higher or lower on virtually, I feel like, Justin, any sport, any athlete of those sports. It's NCAA basketball. It's MLS. When MLS season starts, we'll be all over it then. It's Premier League. It's NFL. Obviously, the big game is coming up. There's going to be so many different projections that you can look at. And it's salivating, honestly, Justin. I know you've been cooking up some nice entries, so maybe you want to show us a couple.
Yeah, absolutely, Jake. So here it is. This is what I'm going to do. This is going to be a little teaser because I do want people to sign up. And then obviously this is when you can really bring home the bacon, making picks on your favorite player. So this one that I'm sharing screen for anybody that cannot see it, this entry on Underdog has a multiplier of 1.26. So essentially, if you were to put $10 into this entry, you could win $12.60. I did calculations and compared this to your typical sports sites. And Underdog is the place to play because those other sports sites do not have anywhere near a multiplier for this. I would say, Jake, this one at a minimum is a multiplier of ×2 more than your typical sports sites. A little background on why I did this pick. Saquon Barkley, over 79 yards. Absolute breeze of a pick for me here, Jake. Averaging 128 yards in the season and 147 in the playoffs specifically. He is hammering over 80 yards. And then Travis Kelce, he is more than 39.5 yards or higher than 39.5 yards. He had 53 yards per game this season. But so, yeah, he's even has that by 14 yards there in the last two Super Bowls. He's had 81 yards versus the Eagles and 93 yards versus the 49ers. So having a higher than Saquon Barkley 80 yards and a higher than Travis Kelce 39 and a half yards wins you a multiplier of 1.26 on Underdog. Use code BALLWATCHING to sign up. DM us the email address that you use to sign up, and I personally will respond with the 17 different picks that I have that you can use for entries to get multipliers of ×2 or better than the typical sports sites that you see.
I love it. I love it. So we talked about the no sweat. Justin, the no sweat is a huge attraction for this. Make sure you get in before the big game and cash in on this. If you lose, it's no sweat off you. You just get some bonus credit back. And if you sign up even before then, you can get what is that, Justin? A new customer free pick. Right now, it's Kelsey to get higher than a half total yard. That could be rushing, that could be receiving. And something in my gut tells me, Justin, I'm not a big football guy, but feel like that one might happen. So that would be a fun one to put into my entry. So there's so many different ways to get involved. And we are so glad we partnered up with Underdog this year. And you'll be seeing a lot more of this coming in the future. But make sure you get in there before the big game. It's going to be a big chance.
Ball watching. Sign up. Have some fun with us for this. I mean, it's across sports as well. Jake and I have been doing highers and lowers on the Blues games. Unfortunately, a lot more lowers have been hitting. But hey, when we call them, we still win as well. So get over to Underdog, use code BallWatching, sign up, and have some fun with us this season because we're going to be using it a ton for city games that are upcoming.
Love it. Love it. Justin, so let's transition. Let's switch gears a little bit here into the final two topics that I have. But, man, these are loaded. So brace yourself, or maybe there's three, time permitting. The first one, Justin, and this is because, we're City fans first and foremost, but I think, a lot of us also really want to support our country and want to see the U.S. win a World Cup in our lifetimes. How do you do that? We've been taking steps in the right direction by looking at new leadership. We've pretty much turned over the top levels of leadership in the last couple of years. And the most important one to me from a sporting perspective has been getting your sporting director, Matt Crocker. And in just a couple of weeks ago, they introduced at a convention in Chicago, the U.S. way. So U.S. way in air quotes. And you all probably looking at me like, oh my God, what is the U.S. way, Jake? Tell me about it. And I'm going to tell you that it's three words that are really going to be or represent our strategy over the at least short to medium term, probably the long term if it's successful, of how we revamp soccer here in the United States and how U.S. Soccer Federation takes an active or a much more active role in that. So it's going to encompass all the 27 national teams from the senior men's and women's all the way down to the U14 and extended national teams. But a quote that I think sums it up pretty well from Matt Crocker was, "The U.S. way is our performance plan to be a country where all of our senior teams can consistently be a podium country at major tournaments." Yes, that is a big, lofty, ambitious goal, but we want to be in those latter stages of all World Cups, all major finals, all major championships. It's also our plan for changing and improving player development in this country. I'm getting goosebumps as I read this, Justin, because we've been clamoring for that for years. And by the way, everyone that comes in and takes that job is going to say that. But I feel like he means it, and they actually have a vision in place to achieve that. And we'll get into some of the specifics, at least at a little bit of a high level with you all here. But how do you feel reacting to that quote and hearing the most senior sporting director in the country saying things like this?
This is huge, Jake. And I agree with you. It's like, oh, the guy just got the job. He's going to start throwing things out. Like, no, the plan that we'll kind of talk through here in a second is very achievable. And it seems like he's laid it out very well. And the biggest thing that you said there, Jake, is that senior teams can consistently be on the podium at major tournaments. We see it a lot, honestly. When you look in the youth national teams, we're winning tournaments left and right. We find that fall off, honestly, when we get to the teens, and honestly, where we really fall off, and I've had this conversation with Kevin Burke and a bunch of other people a lot, is college soccer. I think in the way, and it's because of the way that the season's set up, which I know could be a lot of being shifted right now, but this is kind of a big turnover that we're starting to see. The wheels are really starting to turn on this from top down, U.S. soccer, all the way through grade school soccer, essentially this time. And that we're literally top down and working through college as well, and how we're looking at this from a scheduling for the MLS and trying to grow. So having someone that already has this holistic mindset and doesn't just say these things, but also is putting a plan in place is only great for U.S. soccer going forward.
Yeah. And I'll put my business hat on and say, this is all great. The presentation, I'm sure, was amazing. Show me the money. And you're going to have to show the money at some point. And the showing me the money in this case is podiums and prize pools and huge, huge winnings. But there are three kind of core themes that I found in this plan, the U.S. way, that really stuck out to me. And it's kind of their anchor kind of pillars. And I'll talk about just a couple of things beneath each of the three. But you can kind of think about it, again, putting my business hat right back on. Jake, put it away. We're over the 8 to 5. It is kind of like people process technology, if you've ever heard of that. But they're focused on pathways. They're focused on infrastructure. So pathways, infrastructure being like process technology to me. And then professional development being the people side of things. And so a couple of things that I want to call out specifically that they're kind of digging into there is just one to start. And this is for me more of a, probably more the pathway start. And that is that if you look at US compared to peer countries in the scope of youth national team camps or just youth camps in general, we are so far beyond the benchmark compared to our population about how many camps we should be having. They just did a collective. They looked at England, they looked at Netherlands, they looked at Germany. And you're going to turn around and again probably say to me again, Jake, we're different. We have other major sports, totally. And I acknowledge that. And maybe it isn't fair to do that, one-to-one comparison because we have a lot more to offer, athletes of that age. But with that said, the men's side from U15 to U23, this is just last year, had 20 camps. The women's side had 19, so about equal parity. If you look at England, 34 and 31. Netherlands, 49 and 30. Germany, 57 and 61. I don't got a degree in numbers, but I can tell you that those numbers ain't matching up. And if you're going to have that many youth national team camps, it sounds like the stat they pull right here is the fact that we have 50% fewer games right now in any one of those top nations in the world. We have 50% less contact time with our players. 50% fewer camps for me means that we'll only be half as good. And I don't know if that all adds up, Justin, but that feels right to me. I like the gist. You've got to get these guys into camp together, growing them, developing them, getting them FaceTime with good coaches, good resources, good infrastructure, and we will churn out good products.
No, I'm absolutely with you. At first, when I was trying to do the math, I'm like, how are these other countries doing more than a camp a week? What is like camp one day long? Like, no, this is U15, U16, U17, U18, U19, U20, U23. I'm looking at this, dude. How do we had 0 U18 camps this year and 0 U20 camps? Like, what is going on? Like, we're not even scratching the surface on those. When you were looking at the other ones, we're looking at the Netherlands are having 14 camps in a year for those age groups and individually. So this is one where if you're already looking at the data, again, this guy's pulling it together and be like, here is our problem. Look and see the numbers. America is a numbers country. Fix it.
Another thing more on the people side, Justin, is you gotta have the best people too. We're taking aim at that. We're hiring some really good people at the top level, but Matt Crocker made a point to say, so the key thing that we have to address is not just about consistency with the national teams, but making sure that our philosophies are clear. We have full-time coaches, full-time administrators, and sports scientists that have the world's best within our teams. That's the environment we need to create at our national team training center. And getting into that, Justin, if any of you all missed this, I didn't miss it, but I don't think I realized the crux or the scope in which this is happening, but the under construction Arthur Blank National Team Training Center in Atlanta, Georgia is a groundbreaking new 200-acre facility being funded by a $50 million donation from billionaire Arthur Blank, of course. And he's going to share the name with it, but it'll be the permanent home for both youth and senior national team camps for many years. Cindy Parlow-Cohn, who's the president of U.S. Soccer Now, has said this is a game changer on so many levels. It accelerates many things. And I loved this quote, Justin. She said, many of our staff are working with one team. They've never been to another team's training session or seen another on any of our national teams. Think about Emma Hayes joining Mauricio Pochettino on the field and vice versa, and filtering that down to youth national teams. Can you imagine just like the synergies, Justin? These are smart, experienced people sharing the same facilities, bouncing ideas off each other. I love it.
It's something that we definitely have not seen. I mean, when you think about it, everybody just says, oh yeah, Bradenton, Florida, that's where the US guys go. Like, no, we need an actual home in an epicenter. I mean, Jake, when we had, what interview was it? 2 years ago, we were talking about like the guys were literally in a house in Chicago. And that's like where the US soccer headquarters was in the US. I think this is something when you look at this, yeah, it's nice, it's flashy, whatever, but it's truly what we have to remember is getting, like you said, all these great minds into a similar place all at one time to really help grow this game.
Agreed. Agreed. The final thing I wanted to call to is, we're obviously paying more attention to who we're getting on the radar, and that's better talent identification. The presentation from some of the U.S. soccer's presenters, really highlighted talent ID and how we're trying to improve that department because it hasn't really been great in the last couple of years. They added 11 new scouting positions, bringing the full-time staff just scouting up to 23, and they're also in the process of adding a specific talent ID manager that's going to be based in Europe because our dependence and ability to have a country that is, a melting pot, still very much so. And then we have so many dual nationals and eligibles that could play for the U.S. And I think having a guy like Pochettino on board, having momentum and wind in our sails and a home World Cup coming up, you only hope that all of these factors contribute to more and more kids and potential eligibles for us making the decision to represent the United States and all the opportunity that it serves. So in a similar vein, Justin, I think the U.S. way is something we'll keep an eye on here as it evolves, especially, and becomes more real. But another thing that kind of shifts the landscape to me in the scope of U.S. soccer is D1 right now. NCAA D1 soccer, there is a proposition on the table. Nothing finalized. Anything we're talking about, nothing's finalized. This is just an idea. It's being vetted at this point, but it's been announced. And that is U.S. soccer is wanting to get into bed, for lack of a better term, with NCAA D1 soccer to do a couple of things. Money is definitely an important thing here. I'm not going to say it's not. Maximize revenue, make a new revenue stream for college ball, reduce costs, shift some of that risk onto U.S. Soccer Federation, but make a better experience overall for all athletes and elevate them overall with a balanced season, a better tournament, a better product overall that hopefully harnesses some of the best practices from around the globe in soccer. Why, Justin, you might ask right now, like, why is now the time to look at changing things so drastically? We keep saying it. We're looking at a World Cup here in 26, another in 2031 with the Women's World Cup, which we're all but, I think, guaranteed to win the bid for. The Olympics in 2028 in LA. We're bringing all of our commercial sponsors and rights in-house right now. You're seeing Volkswagen, Nike, Mick Ultra, a bunch of other brands get associated with us. The training center I just mentioned with the Arthur M. Blank National Team Training Center. But Justin, as a former college, D1 athlete, does this, before we get into too many of the specifics, when you read this, did this shock you?
It was. Shocking, no. A little bit surprising. I think we're talking about this, and we've kind of mentioned already. Soccer seeing a big shift in the U.S., and I think this is one that, and I kind of already looped this in on the fact on the U.S. men's national team, we see that drop off during the collegiate spot, and I think that this is we really need to. It's almost like it's a disconnect. Really, it's like we have these youth national teams, and then we have the men's national team, and during college, these guys just kind of go away for a little bit. Either that, or they're going overseas. If you look at it like a Josh Sargent. Obviously not in college. He's actually playing overseas. He's also on our U.S. men's national team and kind of went from the youth and grew up that way. Same with Christian Pulisic. He says for Weston McKennie. None of these guys are in college. So making that connection and kind of bridging that gap is huge. You know who I would love to talk about, and we probably will get a chance to talk about it with, Jake? Mr. Kevin Kalish. Welcome to Ball Watching Class of 2025, head coach of St. Louis University. I would love to hear his thoughts on this because this is something that he is currently in the midst of and kind of explaining to guys as he's recruiting and kind of closing the borders, keeping guys in Missouri from a soccer sense. And I would love to hear what his thoughts are later this year.
Great call. I want to come back to this, Justin, keep this up, and we'll talk about the very end here. But while we're on the college bit, let me just kind of give you the layout of some of the high level ideas or things that they've mentioned, at least as part of this plan to start from. And the things that I have to call out are, obviously this is going to be a lot more quality competition. And what that means, there's going to be a target of 20 to 22 regular season games they're going to play. And those will be from August to April. So you hear the writing on the wall. That kind of lines up with the European schedule, the more prominent schedule that we are probably going to shift to in MLS at some point here soon, if not, immediately in 2026. We're going to put the student athletes first, maybe try to limit more travel, focus on health, and give them more resources to keep, moving in the right direction, and cost savings. I talked about that. Can you give them better facilities? Can you give or tap into the network that U.S. Soccer Federation already has access to? Can you do a playoff, like a U.S. soccer college playoff where it's tighter, right? Like it's not the tournament, right? But can you make it more competitive and target some of the top programs and really, really drive awareness and frankly up the credibility or the level of this game and give college soccer a serious platform to churn out some serious products and players.
I mean, it's only on the ups from here, Jake. I think it's one where, and sadly, I think we're just behind. And it's really exciting for us when we're thinking about it from a U.S. standpoint, but all these other countries have been doing it this way. And you know what? Regardless, I'm pumped. So let's get after it.
And I think the way they would start it slow, from what I can see, they would look at, do they do regional groups to start with playoffs? They target some of the big conferences first, like Big Ten, ACC, Pac-12, Big 12, SEC, and then kind of move inward with Ivy League, Sunbelt, A10, Go Bills, and other conferences as needed. But again, I'm not a former college player. I don't have a strong opinion on really keeping it exactly the way that it is. I would love to give these guys the best chance they have to make it and achieve their dreams. And I feel like a lot of players that are playing D1 NCAA soccer have bigger dreams of playing professionally. Maybe some don't, but I bet a lot do, because they put their heart and their soul on the line. I mean, Justin, you can speak to the work effort and just the toll it takes on your body and your mind to be an athlete at that level. And a lot of guys, I feel like, don't get to reap the benefits, and maybe they never really had a fair shake. So maybe this is a way to do that and do well by these athletes.
And this is, Jake, you say that like everybody, or maybe some guys don't want to go pro. Everybody that goes to college wants to go pro. It's not, obviously, what is that Enterprise commercial? It's like, not all of us go pro in something other than sports. That's the majority of the people. It's like 0.5%. But when you go there, you at least want to have the opportunity and the framework and the highway or avenue to be able to get there. And I don't think that we currently have that. So I'd say anything that we're looking to do right now to improve on this is just a positive for all the guys going forward.
I would agree. Final thing I'll say is, like, you guys probably are thinking to yourself, like, what is U.S. soccer giving in any of this? So to not put words in their mouth, and again, this is just, the opening of a plan right now, is, I think these players could be treated as pros. They would be professionals at this point. They would not be amateurs. They maybe are part of, like, the MLS next bucket or whatever this future looks like in terms of our pyramid. And what U.S. soccer wants to help with is, can they help with, guidance and bylaws of, like, red shirt rules? Can they help with transfer eligibility? Can they help register players, keep them safe, give solidarity payments if those players get bought from overseas or they make it to an MLS club first team? Can they standardize education around coaching and give more staff? Can they maybe make college ball the same with substitution rules? No more subs at the 30-minute mark and come back on later. If you get subbed, you're out. Like, can you make this more of a professional look and feel? Therefore, when the players make that jump, for those that do and that are that fortunate and that good, this isn't whiplash. You've been here before. You've grown up in this framework. It feels like home already. You're now using to match the quality.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
So I'm excited. I mean, so much to be learned. And I think a lot of this will come from talking to those, top coaches from those programs and picking their brains and seeing what sticks. We will definitely slate that, Justin, to chat about with Coach Kevin Kalish from SLU, who's been there from 2018 to current. But Justin, pull back up our cast. I totally breezed by that. We announced this earlier this week on socials for anyone that might have missed it, but you are probably now, 47, 48 minutes in the show saying, shut up. We've heard enough of both of you. And we've heard that feedback. Kidding. But we really want to enhance the show this year. And part of that Justin and I were bouncing around was, could we bring some fresh faces that have much deeper resumes, especially in different areas than we do, that can fill in some color, that can add some fresh insights and really make our analysis and our commentary that much better. So we're tapping on some familiar faces and some new ones as well. George Gansner will be back with the show as a rules analyst for us. Obviously, George is a hell of a guy. He was an MLS referee in AR from 97 to 2015 and for FIFA from 2002 to 2014, member of the St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame. AJ Cochran, Justin, a friend of the Soccer Dad Pod show. We did a show with him with Soccer Dad Pod. He's over 200 appearances in MLS, USL, and USL Championship. 16th overall pick in 2014 for the MLS Super Draft, CBC grad. And you mentioned Kevin Kalish. Justin, we have plenty of time with Kevin Kalish. We've both been coached by him at some point in our past.
Yeah, Kevin Kalish, a longtime friend growing up in the Gallagher family, I would say, per se, in St. Louis, with Kevin and now the head coach of St. Louis University and doing an incredible job there with those guys. You see them consistently ranked year over year, making the tournament, making runs deep into the A10 and then into the NCAA tournament. So Kevin is a great mind to be able to have and kind of pick his brain on the layout of soccer across the U.S., and then also on SLU and the collegiate side, and then also what his thoughts are from a coaching perspective. You get Jake and I's kind of thoughts and opinions on the city games all the time. I would love to hear from a coach's lens, and that's something that we've been lacking. So excited to have him on. And then a buddy of mine, Michael Sinnott, data analytics. You can follow him on X at Chat City Tactics with Mike there. So he's a guy that if you haven't already seen him put together and kind of comparing players and different styles in his formats, it's an incredible essentially thread that he puts together and write-ups on city games specifically, and goes to a deep dive of something that Jake and I have barely scratched surface on.
No, agreed. And the team makes us much, much better, and we're going to call on these guys, at different points throughout the season, whether that's coming out of a controversial call or a situation we want to kind of crack into some of the deeper underlying metrics and data on, get a player's take on, maybe analyze some formations, some tactics from Kevin. So we've got a good group here that can really fill in a lot of those cracks and give you all some damn good content and insights and things that you're going to walk away from having learned in this show. So we are super stoked about this announcement, and we cannot wait to call on these guys and make sure that you all can call them your friends as well.
Jake, you want to walk away with some good content and some good numbers, you need to sign up for Underdog. Make your first deposit using code BALLWATCHING and get a up to $1,000 in bonus cash.
Yeah, and if you're watching on YouTube right now, pull out that phone, whip out the camera, take a picture of this QR code. It'll do it for you. Again, new customers have it good. You can get up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Once you make your first deposit, you'll get a free pick we already outlined, and you'll get access to the No Sweat as well for the big game. So there's so much fun coming up down the pipeline for us here, Justin.
Yeah, and if you sign up within the next couple of days for the big game, you will receive also DM us, and you'll receive my 17 calculated picks and entries for the big game.
Well, what a sales pitch! I love it. Look at you, never taking the sales out of the man, Justin. But I love it joining us from the office today on this lovely Thursday evening, breaking it down for us. What a show it's been. Been a packed one. We've got another one coming up for you next week, maybe with special guests we're working on right now. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, we've got a couple preseason city matches on the horizon. Those are streaming on YouTube if you would like to catch those from City. We've got February 8th against Austin and the 12th against New York City. And then after that, we'll be back with you before. So we are heading towards the end of preseason, man. It's getting closer to the 22nd. We've got a kit reveal coming up, so much down the pipeline. We are stoked, and we will be keeping you all up to speed along the whole journey. But in the meantime, all for City.
All for City.